Ananussutesu Dhammesu Chakkum Udapadi Jnanam Udapadi Panya Udapadi Vijja Udapadi Aloko Udapadi.
Good evening, friends. Welcome you to this evening Sutta study class. Today is July 17, Saturday evening. We are going to begin this evening Sutta study class. Let me pay our due respect to the Buddha by reciting the Namo Tassa 3 times in Pali and in English. With that, we begin the Sutta studies. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. It's a great pleasure to have you in this Sutta studies. I hope we all can discover the Dhamma from the selected discourses of the Buddha. For today's discussion, we have been keeping one particular sutta, and its name is Nagara Sutta. This is from the Samyutta Nikaya, connected discourses of the Buddha, and the sutta number in the Samyutta Nikaya is 12.65. The translation is called the city, Nagara Sutta. The reason why I selected this discourse is because that this unfold important Dhamma with regard to the Noble Eightfold Path. Last week we had the Asivisopama Sutta. Just before its end, Buddha talks about the importance of taking the Noble Eightfold Path as the raft to cross over the flood of suffering for everyone to be safe, so that I thought I should select a discourse in which the Noble Eightfold Path is explained in a beautiful way. Out of many discourses, I selected this one because it has not been discussed in our class. At the same time, it brings, as I said earlier, some of the beautiful Dhamma. Nagara Sutta was delivered by the Buddha when he was at the Jetvanarama monastery. As usual, many discourses are uttered by the Buddha when he was at the Jetvanarama monastery. And this discourse also was to a group of monks. Let me begin the reading first so that we can go into salient features of the discourse with regard to the topics. Because before my enlightenment, while I was still a bodhisattva, not yet fully enlightened, it occurred to me this world has fallen into troubles, in that it is born, ages, and dies. It passes away and is reborn. Yet it does not understand the escape from this suffering headed by aging and death. When now will an escape be discerned from this suffering headed by aging and death? So Buddha is relating to something he thought about the life just before his enlightenment. As you know, the Bodhisattva word, the word Bodhisattva is the title uh, for the Buddha before he attained to enlightenment, because that person, Siddhartha Gautama, was destined to become the self-enlightened, or the Buddha to be. That's why this Pali term is there for him, for the Buddha, Bodhisattva. Sattva is the being, Bodhi is the awakening, awakened moment. So the one who wish to attain to awakening is called Bodhisattva. But this term is not used for you or anybody else, because we are disciples of the Buddha. We come to know about the Buddha's teaching from somebody who has known about it. But the Prince Siddhartha did not have any teacher. Therefore, this term is only used for those who discover the Dhamma by themselves. So he said that before my self awakening, I was questioning uh, that this whole suffering, namely aging and sicknesses, birth, of course, and then passing away and reborn, these things happen to everyone, and nobody knows how to escape from this suffering. So that he was questioning about how and which way uh, I can find solutions to this, birth and dying, or aging and death. Basically, out of many suffering, the severe ones, in my understanding, is aging, and aging and sicknesses. These two are very difficult to bear, because with aging you cannot function your body as before, and at the same time with aging you have illnesses frequently. Dying could happen immediately, right? If you take the time, the amount of time you take dying, I think within a split second death could happen. But prior to death, you have sicknesses, and age factor is a huge thing for us. So that out of many physical suffering, aging and sicknesses are severe than other things. So these two cause for a lot of mental illnesses. Therefore, Buddha's intake into the problem, into the solution, is that why and how this death, what in Pali we call jara marana, aging and death, could happen. So this is what Buddha said at the very beginning of the Nagara Sutta. Let's read how he unfold the story of the Dhamma in a manner of explaining the Dhamma, in a manner of explaining the chain of the Dhamma. Because it occurred to me, when what exists does aging and death come to be? By what is aging and death conditioned? And then because through careful attention, there took place in me a breakthrough by wisdom. When there is birth, aging and death comes to be. Aging and death has birth as its conditions. There are some very good words that we need to remember. Now Buddha Buddha was taking very seriously this problem, aging and death. In my understanding, he knew that his mother died when he was 7, and perhaps he encountered a lot of dying of friends and people that He knew, so that he was questioning why this death happened. It's not a normal questioning like average people. Bodhisattva had a very keen mind with awareness, mindfulness, to go into deeper aspect of this problem, so that his level of questioning was not like the average people's. So care with careful attention. The Pali word for this is yoniso manasikara. When he had yoniso manasikara, wise attention on the issue of aging and dying, he found out the reason, that is the birth. Due to birth, this aging and dying are coming as result. Aging and death definitely, could be could be a thing for us, for all living beings to experience, because of the jati, the birth. When there is birth, aging and death comes to be. Aging and death is therefore is the has the birth. Aging and death has birth as its condition. So it is a very simple thing, but that is the beginning of the questioning. But the level the bodhisattva investigate would be different, definitely, because his mind was so intense on mindfulness, wisdom, and also virya. Therefore, just keep in mind that his investigation into this aging and dying and its reasons would be somewhat different. Then, because it occurred to me, when what exists does birth comes to be? Then the next question was why this birth happens always for living beings. Then he found out from his reasoning that existing of something, existing of some mental aspect could be is the reason for birth. I told you the other day that the birth in Buddhism is not the baby coming out of the womb. At that moment, the human who was born 10 months ago, or 9 months ago, 8 months ago, grew up in the womb for a full-fledged human. And now the mother is delivering that baby to the conventional world. According to Buddhism, the jati happens when the mother and father get together, and the consciousness descend from, and meeting of these three is called jati, sanjati, abhinibbanti, okkanti, khandanang patubhavu, ayatananam patlabo. So according to Buddhism, jati, or the birth, happens, friends, when the new human get into the mother's womb. So it happened 7 months ago of the delivery. So, but conventionally, we take the birth of the child when the mother delivers the baby. So that should be understood. So Buddha, now Bodhisattva is finding the reasons for aging and death because of the that particular birth, well before 7 months of the conventional birth, and that is the reason for aging and dying, and that birth happens due to existence, due to bhava. This could be very interesting because some are very doctrinal issues. Bhava is existence of something, some living entities of a being, and just after the Vardhana, in the order, we have bhava. In the text we call it kama bhava, then rupa bhava, arupa bhava, but in other explanation we have bhavatanha, vibhavatanha, and all kamatanha. So basically bhava is the existing of a being. In my understanding, when somebody dies, there's a quick progress depending on the karma, so that that being who dies quickly immediately, no gap at all, get into the next birth. That is called bhava. And let me clear it again. Bhava is the existence. If you die with some sort of craving in your mind, even even 1%, I would say, you have that power of birth. So when we call bhava, it means the ability to be reborn, ability to exist, ability to reappear. That's called bhava. Punabhava. The Pali word punabhava in Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta means that you can have the ability to be someone else. So that is called bhava, either as a human, either as a divine being, either as an animal or a ghost or hell being, whatever it is. So, but the Bodhisattva found that jati is happening because of the bhava. So then the Bodhisattva understood the bhava is there because of what? Then he found out clinging upadana. I think many of you know this formula very well, but I would say them at least by word just for somebody else to get their mind into that if they forgot. So upadana. Upadana means clinging, grasping. It's a kind of strong attachment to things. You do not want to leave them apart. So you like them very much. So that's sort of understanding we have with the upadana. So bhava is because of upadana. Existing of a being, existing of some sort of mental statements is because of a strong attachment, clinging to material things and clinging to mental things could be expected in this regard. So then Bodhisattva was thinking about why this upadana and what made this upadana to become like that. Then he found out craving. Craving is the delightness and attachment to whatever you delight. So it is not that strong like upadana in the sense of attachment, in the sense of defilement, but it could definitely quickly lead into upadana. So in the matter of studying, we differentiate tanha and upadana as two. Of course, we can see the difference between two, but the progression of between tanha and upadana happens quickly, right? Some people used to say that if we deal with upadana, then we can solve the problems. Friends, if you want to deal with upadana, you have to see the causes of the upadana or the reasons of upadana, because in the Four Noble Truths formula, you have to treat the cause and or the reasons of the suffering in order to get the suffering out of your mind. With that formula, if you want to get out of upadana, you have to deal with the cause of upadana. What is the condition or the cause of upadana? That is tanha. So then if you want to deal with the tanha, you have to understand the feeling. So in the Bodhisattva's understanding, from whatever he experienced to something that he had to die with, he found out that next link for tanha is vedana, right? Feeling. Aggregate of feeling is the main condition for tanha. Basically, pleasant feeling. When there is pleasant feeling, definitely we have uh, uh, developed the other side of the pleasant feeling as well. So then basically tanha is because of feeling. Then why feeling is there? Because of contact, pasha, huge things in the discussion, because it's a mental participation to the physical aspect in the mind, so that we create pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neutral feeling out of contact. So one of the major area we all need to focus is contact. Despite its subtle nature, um, we have to focus it. We have to learn how to engage with contact, passer. Then Bodhisattva was questioning why this contact and how that contact arises. So then he found out with his Yoniso Manasikara that six sense bases are the conditions for contact. In six sense bases, contact happens, passa happens, right? So then why this, how this six sense bases arise? So he found out the conditions for six sense bases as you know, you know, Salayatana is because of Namarupa. And then Namarupa, name and form, is because of Vijnana. So now Bodhisattva is going from one and to the next, from top of the order to the forward order. So he found out that Nama Rupa, Nama means mental you know factors, and Rupa is physical aspect. So both physical and mental aspects are there in the subtle way because of consciousness, Vijnana. These terms are really interesting, but I do not go into details of them, assuming that you understand them. So then Bodhisattva was questioning why this consciousness, what made this consciousness to come into that particular state. Then he, with through careful attention, there took place in me a breakthrough by wisdom. When there is consciousness, name and form come to be, and name and form has consciousness as its condition, because it occurred to me uh, through careful attention. um, when there is name and form, consciousness come to be, and consciousness has name and form as its conditions. When the Bodhisattva look into details of name and form, or Nama Rupa, he clearly saw the condition for Nama Rupa as consciousness, Vijnana. When he was looking at the consciousness deeply, he did not find Sankara as the condition for Vijnana in this particular formula. He found out that name and form are the conditions for Vijnana. So the trajectory and the way of going from top of the order to the other side turn the other way around from Vijnana. So that is what Buddha said here. Consciousness turns back. It does not go further than name and form. It is to this extent that one may be born, and age and die, pass away and be reborn. That is when there is consciousness with the name and form as conditions, and name and form with the consciousness as its condition. So finally, Bodhisattva came to a conclusion that the aging and death start from uh, the reciprocate relationship between consciousness and name and form, Vijnana and Nam Rupa. So between these two terms, the problem arises for aging and death, and all the other stages of suffering could actually start from these two conditions. Then you might question why then Buddha said Sankara and Avijja there. So we can find out the reasons for that later on. So have that question in mind. So here what the Buddha said, that problem started with consciousness and also name and matter, Namarupa. Just forget about the sutta for a while and see why exactly Buddha said this. In essence, with regard to many other discourses like Madhupindika and many other discourses that I now cannot remember by their names, Buddha said that consciousness is the mental participation of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. As you know, when we see something from our eyes, the consciousness is there to give the message to the rest of the mental activities in our mind to get ready for making ideas. So consciousness is the clear indication where mind is getting into touch with the physical aspect in the mind. So with consciousness, Rupa and I, meeting of these three called contact. So basically, therefore, consciousness as an aggregate as well as a direct agent from our mind, helping physical aspect as well as mental aspect to get together. That's why the Buddha compared Vijnana into a magician state, because consciousness could be diluted by ignorance, so that consciousness make the nama rupa to tie together as one and go. Actually, it happens even with clear mind without ignorance. This could happen to even arahants, but they are mindful 100% about what is happening, theoretically as well as practical sense. So this is why the Buddha mentioned here that the problem of suffering with regard to aging and sicknesses and dying start from consciousness, relationship between consciousness and Namarupa. So when Namarupa and consciousness, or consciousness and Namarupa begins the journey, it started with the support of ignorance. And when consciousness become the conditions for Nam Rupa, it is also a Sankara. So we do not want to mention about avidya, ignorance and Sankara, mental formation necessarily. They are because meeting of consciousness with Nam Rupa, we have these two factors. But if you are mindful and if you are wise, the level of ignorance could be vary from person to person, right? So suppose you are very 100% mindfulness about the body and mind. So then your consciousness meeting with name and form could be wise and attentive and mindful, and in other words, it happens with the basis of mindfulness. Therefore, there is no ignorance into a greater sense, so that the salayatana, the six sense basis, and the contact and vedana and all the other negative aspect right after that would not be there, because you don't have ignorance in the meeting of Vijnana and Namarupa. So, but here in this discourse, Buddha is talking about how the Bodhisattva came into the right analysis without anybody's help. That is really interesting, because it occurred to me that very important thing. Origination in Pali, samudayo. Thus, because in regard to things unheard before, there arose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and light. So Buddha said that before that, I did not have this clear view about the process of process to the sicknesses and dying. But with careful investigation, yoniso manasikara, I could solve each issues in the chain with conditions, so that finally I found that consciousness and also name and matter, that relationship is the beginning of the journey to aging, sicknesses and dying. So that my mind was enlightened into the fact that I found origination, I found the beginning, I found the starting point of this samsara, Buddha said. So then, because it occurred to me, when what does not exist, does aging and death not come to be? So then now Bodhisattva was not done yet. Now he thinks that when what does not exist, this aging and dying is not there. So in order to stop aging and dying, what should I do? So then with careful investigation, he came to the conclusion that if there is no birth, there is no aging, sicknesses and dying, no jara and marana, aging and death. And the when he found out the reason for aging and death as birth, it is simple for us to understand now because Buddha has already told it in many ways. The, the birth is the main cause for aging and death. And when it is not there, there is no aging and dying. So Bodhisattva went to each and every questions there that if I do not want to have another birth, what should I do? And what should be erased from the chain? Then he found out if there is no existence, there is no birth. And if there is no, if I want to end the existence, what should I do? No attachment, no clinging. That is the cessation part of it. Then if I do not want to clinging anymore, then I have to let go of craving. And if craving should be stopped, I have to deal with the feeling. When you read the discourse, you might get the idea that you eradicate the feeling, aggregate of feeling. But friends, that is not what the Buddha mean there. When you cease the feeling, you cease the the nature of attached, craving on feeling. Buddha also had feeling. Arahants also had feelings. If you attain to full enlightenment today, you would feel pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neutral feeling, but you do not have any mental, uh, you know, you know, what you call craving or attachment to feeling. That is the difference between the average people and the arhats. So when we understand the formula, cessation of feeling means you understand the feelings as they are, and you do not allow any possibility there to have craving on feelings. Then you understand what exactly the conditions for feeling, and if you want to stop pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feeling in that way, you deal with the passa contact. Then you understand six sense basis, and then you of course get into the full understanding of nama rupa, name and matter. Then you understand how this nama rupa come into be, that is consciousness. So then finally he said, monks, it occurred to me that cessation and cessation, via or nirodha, the very word the Buddha talks about here is nirodha, nirodha. That's because in regard to things unheard before, there rose in me vision, knowledge, wisdom, true knowledge, and life. So now Bodhisattva is very certain about these two. What are the two things he actually understood completely? Origination, samudaya of a being, and also the cessation of a being in our mind, not with physical things. I just want to emphasize that because sometimes people think that Bodhisattva was looking out in the outer space by to understand this. No, he understood these ways of uh, consciousness and name and matter up to the dying, and also the other order in his mind. When he understood that this origination, samudaya, and cessation, nirodha, in human mind, with regard to his experience, he come to know that this is what is happening for myself and everybody else. Let me get into the uh, Dhamma there. So so that he was very particular. He was very certain that he found the origination and as well as cessation. So with regard to the four noble truths, this is what he understood: the suffering is because of all these steps in the origination Paticcasamuppada formula, and the beginning of it is between the function between the consciousness and name and form. And then if one wants to end it, he or she should start by whatever he or she experienced. But if you go to end one thing, you have to deal with the other. At the end, you understand how consciousness and name and form come together with ignorance to create this journey in samsara. And if you want to end this journey in samsara, so you have to let ignorance go first, with regard to name and form and consciousness, so that you cleanse the other steps as well. So without going into details, I just want to mention the simile, the nagara in the discourse right after this. Suppose bhikkhus, a man wandering through a forest, would see an ancient path. So having related the both journey on sansara, and also how one can stop sansara, he now tells a story or simile or analogy. Suppose a man wandering through a forest see an ancient path, an ancient a road traveled upon by people in the past. He would follow it and would see an ancient city, an ancient capital that had been inhabited by people in the past, with parks, groves, ponds, and ramparts, a delightful place. Then the man would inform the king or a royal minister later on, sir, while I was wandering in the forest, I saw an ancient path, and in that ancient path, I traveled into some distance. Then I saw a kind of a city that is abandoned by people. There are there are ponds and parks and ramparts and various type of building. There, it seems to me that there were a lot of people in that city in the ancient time. It seems to me that it's a beautiful city. So this man, came, come to the king or any particular person in administration, and he speak about what he saw in the deep forest. Um, so too, bhikkhus, I saw the ancient path, the ancient road traveled by the perfectly enlightened ones of the past. And what is the path, ancient path, or the road? It is just this noble eightfold path. That is right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. I followed that path, and by doing so, I have directly known aging and death, its origin, its cessation, and the way leading to the cessation. I have directly known birth, existence, clinging, craving, formation, their origin, their cessation, and the way leading to the cessation. Having directly known them, I have explained them to you because the male and female bhikkhus, male and female lay followers, about the ancient path that I followed, and that the ancient Buddhas followed. Um, this holy life, because has become successful and prosperous, extended, popular, widespread, well proclaimed among devas and humans. So we have come to the end of the discourse, but not with the discussion, but the end of the discourse is such that Buddha explained that that he, just like the man found the ancient city in the deep forest with parks and cities and various elements of the city that are abandoned, he also found a path that you know walked by previous Buddhas, and that path is not anything else but the Noble Eightfold Path. So I, at the very beginning of the discussion, I told you that I just wanted to find out a beautiful discourse about the Noble Eightfold Path. Out of many, I found this discourse because the way the Buddha said that he practiced the Noble Eightfold Path is really interesting. Isn't this showing that the Noble Eightfold Path is not a creation by the Buddha? Yes, it is not a creation by the Buddha. He, he said here that there were future Buddhas like him, and they were as bodhisattvas, practice the Noble Eightfold Path to become self-enlightened Buddhas, and they delivered the Dhamma to their bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and lay followers, and then it disappeared. Uh, and it was not in people's mind after that, even in divine beings. There was so long period of time that no one knew about the teachings of the Buddha. And I, as the self-enlightened bodhisattva, found out that ancient path that many Buddhas followed and many monks and nuns and lay followers followed. That path is not anything else, the Noble Eightfold Path. When you imagine that, when you go to the deep forest, do you find carpet floors? The steps that people created for you to step the hilly areas? Do you find small pathways to go freely without any problems? No. When you go into the forest, you have to be careful of different plants that like poison ivy and bushes that could damage, harm you, and wildlife, and so many obstacles are there. So friends, when you practice the Noble Eightfold Path, you find a lot of issues. It is true that the Noble Eightfold Path is the whole solutions for each problems. The Satipatthana is in the Noble Eightfold Path, and the other important factors for enlightenment also in the Noble Eightfold Path. Therefore, the Noble Eightfold Path is the middle path that the Buddha took for his enlightenment, and we also should practice. But it is not that easy. I'm not discouraging you here, but what I wanted to tell you that just like you go to the forest and find difficulties to go there, you exactly come across some difficulties. But those difficulties teach us to clear the important Dhamma elements of the Noble Eightfold Path strongly with the new phase and go forward. So when a person takes the Noble Eightfold Path as the path to go into that beautiful city where flowers and ponds, parks, and all kinds of amazing things are established, you of course enjoy the life. With regard to the discourse, if you want to stop aging and dying, what you need to do? Taking life insurance doesn't make any sense. Of course, we have doctors here. They would speak of various things out of the Dhamma that could average people should do, but they of course know what exactly they should do for aging and dying. People encourage in the market, in the business, to take life insurance. Actually, there are no life insurance in this world. Definitely, life is going to end with dying. So, what is the solution in Buddhism, in Buddhist psychology, for us to take to find solutions for aging and death? That is Noble Eightfold Path. From the Samma Ditti to the Samma Samadhi, you genuinely practice each and every aspect of it so that you feel that You are physically aging. You have physical illnesses. There would be conventional dying, but your mind is pure to experience them. Your mind is out of fear to experience them because you have been on the Noble Eightfold Path. What about the birth? Of course, in order to stop birth, you have to stop, sensual becoming, sensual, pleasures. So you have to stop upadan, you have to stop craving, and you have to stop craving for pleasant feeling, craving for unpleasant feeling, neutral feeling, and so forth. You have to deal with the ignorance. So we can say this as a statement that you have to stop all these negative emotions in mind, defilements in mind. But what is the method? The Noble Eightfold Path. So then, friends, we have to ground on the Noble Eightfold Path. We have to stand on the Noble Eightfold Path. So then, Bodhisattva has found the whole lot of information about the origination, and he saw how to seize the origination, so that he did it on the basis of Noble Eightfold Path. So keep that simile in mind. When a person goes to the forest, he suddenly found a path, and he went on walking. He continued walking on the path, and he found out an ancient city, and he could easily imagine that city would be a nice, beautiful place in the past when people existed in that city. So that person came to the king of the country or any similar person and told about this story. So Buddha took his positions to tell the monks that I am that person who walk on the thicket forest and found this path myself, and I walked on that, and I found that city where every beautiful things. Friends, this city is nothing but the nirvana. In that city you do not have aging, in that city you do not have sicknesses, in that city you do not have birth, no any other defilement. This is metaphorically saying that Nibbana is a city, Nibbana is a place, is existing in the outer space, but we know the Dhamma about Nibbana, that it is a mental state where there is no possibility of future birth. So now I can stop talking one way talking. I let our good friends in the group to speak about the discourse and anything out of the discourse, so that we can have a meaningful discussion. So this is Nagara Sutta in basically. Keep that title of the Sutta, Nagara Sutta. Buddha talks about the unknown man who went into the forest and found a strange path, and he walked on that and found an ancient abandoned city. So that is the simile Buddha gave, and he, Buddha himself, was in the same situation, and he had the problems behind him: aging, dying, birth, upadan, craving, and feeling, and all these things had in his mind as problems, so that he thought that this Noble Eightfold Path is the solutions for everything, and he practiced into highest and reached into a level where he crossed over the Noble Eightfold Path as well, and found out the Nirvana. So please take your time now for additions and comments and also explanation.
Uh, yes, Swaminathan Bhante. In one of your previous discussions, you said consciousness is an innocent thing. Consciousness is not the culprit, but due to ignorance, no, what I feel is due to ignorance, we create sankara and ego, your ego, which will interpret things we see in a different way. So we don't see the things as they are because of our ignorance. So isn't it because of that Buddha put ignorance into the first place in Paticca Samuppada, and then comes sanskara. It's in the ignorance that causes thoughts formation and your ego. Thoughts will create a ego. Ego will have these feelings and everything because of the ego. Is it a good interpretation, Bante?
Indeed, with some discourses, we can find this connection, and what you said is true. Yeah, with ignorance, everything is polluted, right? Ignorance is considered as the father of defilements, while the tanha is the mother. So both tanha and ignorance come together and make everything polluted. So when there is ignorance, the sankara, the mental things that is working would be wrong and geared with other negative thoughts. Of course, the reason why I said that consciousness in a way is innocent, because arhants also have consciousness, but their consciousness is not is signless. Their consciousness is signless, which means that their consciousness is like the lotus leaf, and do not get anything any defilement into it, because they have deal with the ignorance very well and do away with that. So yes, with regard to what you said, you are right. I mean, when there is no ignorance, there is no sankara created to take the journey further onto suffering. With when we replace ignorance, what we have actually is yoniso manasikara, sati sampajanya, sammaditthi, and in as a umbrella term, wisdom is there, vidya is there. So with vidya, everything is okay. With vidya, sankara could be in a visankara level, which means sankara is not a disturbed thing. Of course, you talk, you have vitaka vichara, you have sanya vedana as sankaras, but they are not deluded by ignorance anymore. They are geared by wisdom just for living, just only for living, so that your consciousness, nama rupa, and salayatana passa, vedana are in a neutral way. No damage they can do to our mind whatsoever, so that there is no craving, no padana, no any other suffering state after that. I agree with what you said, because some discourses focuses on what you said.
Yeah, Bante, one more question out of that. Isn't it possible that consciousness is common to everyone? It is a universal consciousness, and due to each one's ignorance, we create our own defilements and everything. In that sense, when someone like Arahat, or when you are in a very deep samadhi state, you connect with the universal, we'll say some people call it universal life force. You connect with the consciousness, that means universal consciousness, so that you're not there, because we feel we are here because of our ignorance. There's a person called this person, that person. The cause of that is ignorance, but there is no person, only a activity. So when you are in samadhi state or arhat state, into that's the correct word, you are connecting with the universal force or universal consciousness. Is that a correct interpret? What do you think of that interpretation given by some?
Yes, I think there are a lot of things to discuss in that. I have a hard time to understand with the universal consciousness, because a lot of people talk about the universal consciousness, because we learn from the Dhamma section of the Buddha, not the Vinaya, that consciousness is about within a individual, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, tongue, body, mind. These are the 6 type of consciousness. Whenever the Buddha talks about consciousness, he talk about just one consciousness. And I think people talk about universal consciousness. It is about absorbing or perceiving uh, the, 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 the concept called universe from mind, so that they feel that the world exists, world system. I have a hard time about that term, universal consciousness, but what I know what you are talking about. Um, yeah, when one becomes an arahant, he understand the consciousness definitely.
But there's no person, no, well, Bhante, when you become Arahat, it's, I mean, there you can't say he is existing, because it is, I mean, say when you are in a meditative state, Bhante, in Samadhi state, you have the feel awareness of the arising and passing away. Other than that, you don't have any thoughts or anything. But for in advanced deep meditations, so only the awareness.
Yeah,
Same thing, can't it be said about
yeah,
the?
that's true. From the if you analyze from the arahant's point of view, they don't have any entity like called any person, any living beings called human or animal or divine beings. They have come across and gone beyond that perception called beings, because with in Sangyutta Nikaya said satta satta. Satta is the Pali word means being or living beings. So that particular term could be used only for someone who has craving. That's why Buddha said that I'm not a human being too. In Arya Pariyasana Sutta and in another sutta to a Brahmin, he said that I'm not a human being too, because humans always have emotions and craving, but Buddha did not have it. Therefore, the Manusa is not the best word for Buddha, for the Buddha, for the Arahants. Yeah, I agree with that. That when you are in Arahant state, you don't recognize that you exist or anybody else exists. But from the point of from the point that they live in the society, vohar mattena ahang. I'm trying to remember the Pali terms Buddha used. Arahang katavi vohar mattena. They also use term I, me, and myself in terms of conventional truth in order to exist to the last moment of this life they have. So they use I, me, and myself. But from the philosophical point of view of the Arahants, there is no awareness that I, me, or they exist, because they have gone beyond that. It's very difficult to think about the Arahant's mind until unless we are in that state. But it is true from the text that they don't have that awareness, I, me, and myself. Their consciousness is pure. That's why we call anidasana vinyana. They do not have nidasana vinyana. Nidasana vinyana means, in our view, in our vinyana, we create picture, we create stories. With vinyana, we create stories. Our vinyana is deluded by something, particularly ignorance. But Arahant's vinyana is anidasana. In a space, suppose that this is space. I make a cycle. Can you see that cycle now? No. But if I keep a board or a pen and paper, I make a cycle. Now you can see it. So Arahant's mind is just, Arahant's consciousness is compared to the space where there you cannot make pictures, drawing, and so forth. So that's why Arahant's Vijnana is called Anidashana. Yes, from the Arahant's point of view, they don't have people, they don't have divine beings, they don't have even the Buddha, they don't have themselves for themselves. So nothing exists. That's called total emptiness. But from layman point of view, from the point of view of others who are still on the path, we have to accept the fact that there is something going on. Uh, Even at least, arising and passing mind. We have to accept the fact that it is there, and that's why we deal with it on the basis of the Noble Eightfold Path. In other words, Sankata. Sankata means even the Noble Eightfold Path is conditional in us. Yeah, but at the same time, I just want to emphasize the fact that people talk about universal consciousness, but to me, it is the same consciousness Buddha talks about. Consciousness is still depending on Vijnana Sankara Pacha Vijnana, Vijnana Pacha Namarupam. So Vijnana is something conditional within us. It exists in the Salayatana, and that's all I know about Vijnana. But in the Western, psychology and philosophy now mingle with Buddhist teaching, they talk about the universal consciousness. It's to me that something exists out of the space somewhere in this universe, and when arahants die, they unite with that, and I don't understand this whole concept. That is what I take from their interpretation of universal consciousness.
Can I make a comment on the second question Mahendra had? Come in.
Please.
I never heard of universal consciousness in Buddhist teachings. Either there are 6 types of consciousness Buddha talk about. The mind conscious being the main, because at the end, everything is mana and manatrada and aramunu, so the mind consciousness. But I guess the West, it may be the concept that infinity of consciousness is a form of jhana state is mistaken for universal consciousness. I mean, arhats don't stay in a universal consciousness. Arhats does not cease to exist, like a light goes through pretty much like a lamp fade away, is gone, right? So I think what you talk about the anidasana vijnana or consciousness that cannot be defined, or it's called base with consciousness without a base. Tanisaru Bhikkhu kind of translates that way. Pretty much consciousness always has to go with the other 4 Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara. It cannot exist alone, but always think about, we are talking right now, we are consciously aware of our thoughts, right? Yeah. So there is always feelings or perceptions. So in arahats, like they are aware, but they are not clinging to those the aggregates without. So that's a kind of, it's hard, as you say, it's hard for us to explain it because we are not, at least I'm not arahat yet. So that's the second one. The first one, Mahendra, that's also a very good point. So avidya pacha sankara, when you talk about the Paticcasamuppada, avidya pacha sankara, which is the beginning, like all the starts with avidya pacha sankara. But even in the science, like recently read a paper, because the brain does not have direct access to the senses. So there's a thing called a predictive mind. There's a predictive error correction, or the thoughts are already there with previous experiences. It could be astravas. I'm thinking maybe it's astravas thoughts popping up, because when you see avidya pacha sankara, when Sariputta explains the I think the one sutra, it talks what is the cause for avidya. It talks about astrava. So astravas are already thoughts, like it's called implicit memories are already there to protect us. These are called predictive error correction of the mind. Then only eventually it goes to salayatana. Once you salayatana, then that's where you like experience the world. Till then, it's like a subconscious level. These things are happening at a rate, right? And then obviously it goes as a cycle. So it's interesting how even the science talking about thoughts process beginning before salayatana, with the brain does not have direct access to the senses at the beginning. So for survival, we do have. So it's kind of a way go with what Buddha is talking about, avidya pacha sankara. We wonder why sankara is already there before even we see something, right? It is there. It's
yes, PL, one more thing to add to that. Isn't it possible that you are bringing that from your past, for example, previous lives? Ignorance has been there, is cultivating, and
it could be a previous lives, more than previous lives, your previous like memories in this life. Probably, if you can recall, for example, in this sutra, Buddha talks about, that's a very good point, because we can go back to the sutra, the metaphor. I was going to ask that question. That will connect this, your question. Because Buddha talk about, like, it's something like a recall. For example, when under Dipankara Buddha, Buddha have heard the Noble Eightfold Path. Buddha is now talking about here an ancient city. He finds some steps, and all of a sudden, not he, like the metaphor he talks about, this guy who finds his steps, and suddenly he start clearing. He tells the king, and the king start clearing. So maybe Buddha recalls some steps from previous lifetime, like maybe he has already heard Noble Eightfold Path. So it's kind of clear it, kind of more refined it and put it in a nutshell, a Noble Eightfold Path. Maybe does it implies the Buddha kind of recalled the Noble Eightfold Path in this sutra? Already he is like a kind of not rediscovering. It is already, it was there by previous Buddha. I don't know. That's a question for Bhante. As Mahendra said, there could be memories coming, mostly memories from this. I mean, it's really hard for us to go back to the past memories. It could be connected. Maybe if you're like a pretty much, you have a, like habits from previous births, you could carry on to this lifetime, but it's mostly the habits of this lifetime. I think we were working mostly avijja. That's what I feel. Maybe talking too much.
Yeah. So at the same time, if you take two twins of the same environment,
Yeah.
so they can be of different character.
Yes.
The same twins, same environment, same parents, but they
That's
can
right.
be of different character.
Yeah.
So isn't it some
Maybe.
evidence that they are bringing something on their own?
Yeah, they are two vijnanas. It's like a same factory producing a same car, like say Chrysler, but different drivers. So I mean, so it doesn't matter if they're monozygotic twins, but the mind come from somewhere else. So the driver is different. The car is exactly the same.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so what I can say to that is that ignorance actually is in that line of 12, Patichampada has been kept in the first as the first link, but we can see in the entire Tripitaka in some discourses that the Buddha talks about the conditions for ignorance as well. As you said, could be asava. When we go into asava, kamas or bhavas or dittas or avijjas, or they come into exist because of hindrances. In avijja pahana sutta in Samyutta, Buddha talks about ignorance is there because of 5 hindrances. So it is true that we bring something from previous lives for this unit called new life, and you are putting fuel or fertilizer in this life for that ignorance, for that craving, for that dittas and everything to grow well. So that is happening from the very beginning of the jati in the mother's womb, and it is multiplied by the mother and the father and everyone when the baby comes out of the womb. Of course, you come to this world with some residue of ignorance, and so you put fertilizer, water, and everything for you. Actually, that is being done by the others, and it is the child responsibility to develop. So it is true that we come with something, because birth, any type of birth, even the bodhisattva's birth, even the anagami's birth, happen be due to some sort of ignorance. So it is true that, but at the present moment, with the current condition, ignorance is caused by, according to Avijja Pahana Sutta, 5 hindrances. And how 5 hindrances come into developed and exist and help a particular seed ignorance to develop further? 3 type of misdeed, Trivida Duscharita. Then we can see the way how these things come from the association of unwholesome people. Asatpurisa Sansevana is the beginning of ignorance. So actually, with that in mind, I'm pretty sure that Buddha has consoled us that, okay, ignorance come from somewhere you do not know as the beginning, but you can deal with it with some practices and you can end it. That is the important thing, right? So both of you said something very interesting, and uh, from the discourse we can find some solutions. So a noble eightfold path, that is the only path we have. Actually, the other day in Sinhala discussion, one of my friends asked where and why the Buddha said the Satipatthana is the direct path for Nibbana Satchikiriya. Actually, Satipatthana is included in the Noble Eightfold Path. So at the end, everyone has to come to this ancient path uh, and take it as your own, open aika. So which means that we take it as our own and experience something our own on the basis of Noble Eightfold Path. Then see the ignorance as it is. According to Samadhi, ignorance is understood as it is fully, firmly, uh, uh, when somebody come into Samadhi. So I think, and then not only ignorance, you can see every other defiled state of mind, so that you are well set to go on the Noble Eightfold Path up to that ancient city, which we call Nirvana. So I think that's the end of today's Sutta discussion. Keep the Nagara Sutta in mind and keep the discussion and points of discussion in mind. Those who cannot remember things, just apply some method of remembering things so that you would definitely enjoy the Dhamma even while driving, even while talking to somebody else, because one after the other, those Dhamma facts come to your mind if you remember them.
Can we do Nagara, another sutra next time? Same, similar name, Nagara Upama Sutra?
Oh, we can take it next time. Yes, definitely. So I will keep that in mind.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for your contribution, both of your contribution. And I know that those people who listen to Dhamma silently definitely think about the Dhamma in their own mind. And we appreciate you. Because of you, we all can discuss the Dhamma. So wish you good health and peace of mind. So that is the end of today's Sutta discussion. Tomorrow we'll have our Asala Full Moon Day meditation and seal program. I think other temples also organize this, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. So enjoy the Dhamma with those programs and try to make others enlightened if possible with the form of Dhamma discussion, so that we all go to that ancient city in this very life. With that with that blessings, I remain here. May you all be well, happy and peaceful.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.